Okay, well, good morning, everyone. Nice to be with you again. Here we are in our webinar series, coming into our fourth webinar, I believe, if we count our virtual coaching one in that mix. So just a little note to everyone. I mean, most of you who are on the call, thank you for joining, first of all, and also thank you for coming back and for taking part in our community webinar program. I think that our plan is definitely to have additional webinars. When we first started, John and I thought, well, let's put together as many speakers as would like to come forward. And so we have, two or three more. I'm a little behind. I need to do some posting on the webpage of a couple that are coming down the road, but we definitely want to continue this. So I want to invite those of you, some of you that I know personally on this call, I think would be phenomenal speakers to share what you're doing. And so we'd love to have you be part of this. And even if it's a half-hour short presentation of some aspect that you're working on now that might be useful for others, love to have you. So just please reach out to me or to John if that's the case. We'd love to get you involved. And so, yeah, I think so far we've had great feedback from many of you on the session. So I think it's helping. It's been great for all of us. And I think, today particularly, John and I were talking about, I think we want to try now to move forward. We want to try to start to talk about what our world looks like as we start to, even if we're not right now, but as we start to get back out and, eventually that's going to happen, hopefully sooner than later. And how do we do that? And what are some of the things that we can be progressive at and planning for to help ourselves and our organizations move forward? So we want to kind of take another theme now. There's another layer to this, which is all about planning and executing in kind of a new normal. I don't really like that word, but, as we move forward, what are the kinds of advice that we can share with one another to help us move forward in maybe an even better way, maybe more productive, maybe more innovative. It's a great chance for us to do that. And so John is going to kick us off kind of in that kind of mindset about, okay, let's start from the beginning and start to think about road mapping about, what do we look like as an organization now, and what do we need to look like as an organization in future? So that's really the theme of a tool that, John has been leading, and I've kind of been in the passenger seat helping to just be, a sounding board on some of the elements of this eGauge tool. And so John's going to lead the conversation today about the development of this tool. And I'm not going to let any surprises out of the bag here, John, don't worry. But I think you'll be intrigued and hopefully interested to engage with the tool once John's kind of led you through the talk about the logic and the strategy behind it. If there happens to be anyone, I think it's probably a remote possibility on the call, that does not know John. John is the managing director of Purdue Ventures. I think most of you will know John from there. In that role, he's the fund manager for 3 seed funds, and he also manages around 40 different startups as part of Purdue Research Foundation's portfolio. So extensive roots and history with Purdue. He's also on voluntary partial retirement from Purdue, and in that role, he's working as managing director of North Riverside Partners. That's a consultancy firm. And lastly, he's a partner in WKI, and we're partnering and collaborating together and bringing our combined skills to work together on some of the initiatives like you see here this morning. So that being said, I'm going to turn it over to you, John, and let you take it from here.
Great. Thanks, Wendy. Great introduction. Good morning, everybody. I guess the best way to kick this off is to tell you all what a pleasure it was to put a dress shirt on today. I haven't actually worn a dress shirt for a while, so this was good. This is actually kind of an exciting moment for me, because this is really the soft launch of eGauge, a product that we've been working on diligently since the start of the year, but the roots of this product, they actually go back probably about 10 years in my consulting practice with North Riverside Partners. So I'm not going to bore you with the history, but suffice to say, a lot of effort has gone into developing this into what I think will be a tool that everybody on this call is going to see some great use for. Okay, let me. Wouldn't you know it? Why? There we go. So what's it all about? Well, it's helping our organizations become best in class. It's a comprehensive assessment tool, and I'm going to start getting into some of the details. This webinar, by the way, probably will tend towards more of the half-hour version of the series that we've been doing every week, and I'm going to get links out to everybody. So hopefully you'll have plenty of time, even yet today, to dive into this. If you haven't met me, it's good to meet you. Just a little bit of my background. Really, Wendy's introduction covered everything of importance. I've been at Purdue since 2005, managing the statewide network of incubators and research parks, and then later as a co-founder of the Purdue Foundry, and most recently the past 3 years. Wow, almost 4 years of managing Purdue Ventures. North Riverside Partners has actually been around since about 2003 and has served a variety of market niches, including corporates, small startups, and growth companies. So what's today about? As Wendy so eloquently said, it's all about looking forward and using this time that we have right now to prepare to be our best for tomorrow. And then what would a good webinar be without a Yoda quote? Already know you that need. You saw that quote 2 weeks ago when 2 weeks ago when I did the session on bootstrapping. It's all we all have it in us. It's a matter now of how do we kind of extract that, and how do we put it into a format that will serve as a roadmap for our future. So when I talked about bootstrapping, I did spend a little bit of time talking about what I'm seeing on the investing side of things in the investment landscape, everything from seed investments from angels, from friends and family, all the way up through venture capital. And the bottom line there was the common message that we're hearing throughout that industry is that they've hit pause. Now we're actually now seeing some loosening up of that. We're seeing some activity. In fact, I think Thursday I have a series of probably half a dozen meetings with startups through a local venture fund. But generally, because so much of what goes into the startup world from a capital standpoint tends to be discretionary capital, meaning there's not a immediate need on the investing side to put the money to work. People still tend to be a little bit on pause, waiting to see what happens, what the fallout is. We will, as much of a different world as we live in today from 30 days ago, 30 days from now, it's going to be, again, much different. I suspect it'll include more socialization, more getting out, more doing and returning to whatever normal will become. But let's use this time that we're on pause to assess where we are as an industry, within our industry. And by industry, I mean everybody that's in the entrepreneurship support system, whether you're a builder, whether you're an investor, whether you're a support person, whether you're running an incubator, a research park, a government program. There's all sorts of organizations that touch on kind of this main industry of builders. So with that, we wanted to make sure that we actually spent a lot of time accelerating the launch of this to kind of fit the current need. But to use eGauge, and Wendy and I spent a great deal of time thinking about and talking about extending the beta program, which is what we've done. And by doing that, we're able to provide this tool to all of you at no cost, and are looking for people to audit their organization's position in the industry, assess their strengths, identify where their gaps are, and then assess their readiness to move forward. And we do that through actually three aspects of the tool itself. The comprehensive self-assessment, which I'm going to get into more detail on. A detailed industry comparator, which I would liken to machine learning. The more we use this, the more we're learning about what's happening in the industry and how people compare. And then it also produces a roadmap for you for the future, a very customized look at ideas for implementation based upon where you fall in the industry. So this is a way to graphically look at it. What I've put in green there, I'm calling your innovation hub. It could be an angel group. It could be a set of individual angel investors. It could be an incubator. It could be an innovation center. It could be a corporate innovation center. But this whole notion of innovation hubs, and we do spend time internally here at WKI thinking through what the appropriate taxonomy is. I think Wendy and I have probably been looking at a thesaurus and understanding synonyms more than ever before as we try to characterize things like the innovation hub, as we try to characterize things like the tools that we're espousing. But what is eGauge? So it looks at, it has you, it guides you through a look at your innovation hub through basically three key lenses. External factors, obviously that's taken on a huge significance today with the change in the economy and kind of the change in our culture and society across the globe. It looks at institutional factors. Many of you, but not all, but many of you are part of a larger structure. So it looks at how you fit within your specific institution, the kind of support you get, and it does it on a number of factors, which we'll look at a little bit in a little more detail a little bit later. And then the key part is it looks at all the core components of your organization and the systems and processes you are using. Specifically, you'll see listed there those that are client facing, things like programs and offerings, access to capital, that type of thing. Marketing and sales that you do and you're standing in the community. It also looks at people, quality, and finance as relates to your specific organization within your innovation hub. So institutional factors are a little bit separate. That looks at the bigger picture. You can kind of view that as looking above you, as well as within you, whereas the core components are almost entirely an internal look at what you're doing to operate. This is another way to look at it. It's really three machines working as one. If I can draw your attention to the bottom three bullet points first, we've talked about those: the self-assessment, the industry comparator, and the roadmap to the future. And we have three, in essence, machines that work through this process: the analyzer, the industry comparator, and the idea generator. And if you look at the graphic above, this really kind of is an attempt to show the flow. It starts on the left side with your input, which is in the form of a comprehensive 99 statement questionnaire that you rate answers. And I can assure you, I'm glad to be able to report that based on the betas to date, that takes less than 20 minutes to complete. It goes into the analyzer, and the analyzer looks at the three categories I just mentioned: the external environment, the institutional environment, and the core components. And within each, you can see listed under external: business climate, community, service providers, mentors, entrepreneurs. A very important consideration. We oftentimes, in what we do professionally, look at entrepreneurs only through the lens of who our clients are. And we can do that later with the core components. But a bigger question for all of us to consider is, where do we stand in our regional culture relative to accessing the entrepreneurs throughout the region, which become a very critical source for many things, including mentorship, investment, and other assistance. We also look hard at the institutional environment from a vision and strategy standpoint, structure, leadership, and culture. Where do you stand within that? What can you do of your own accord? And then also it measures where are some of your constraints, because within your institution you may be constrained, maybe negative, it may be positive, because of some of the institutional requirements. And then the core components piece, we've already talked about those 5 factors, and you'll see here in a moment that you'll see industry comparisons on every one of those in yet another cut of detail. So from the analyzer, that data is fed into the industry comparator. There's an element of machine learning within that then ultimately moves towards the idea generator, which is the heart of where the what I like to call ideas to consider come from. So we assess, we compare, we strengthen in a variety of areas. I'm not going to go through all of those, but that gives you a sense, and we will be making these slides available to everybody. It kind of gives you a sense of all the categories and the areas that we take a hard look at and analyze. So I'm gonna get into a little detail with the next 3 the next 3 slides. Let me just catch up on my other screen here. So these 3 slides give you a view of what the assessment tool looks like, and you'll receive a link to this later today by email. Everybody that registered for the webinar will receive that link. Feel free to share that link with your staff, with your leadership teams, with others in the broader organization. Based on how those are filled out, I'll be able to aggregate them into each appropriate organization, probably with a number of phone calls and emails that you'll get from me as I try to sort through to make sure I have all the data properly placed. But you'll see here the first section, you go into a series of questions on external environment. And as you can see in the samples, there'll be a statement. So the first statement is our regional economy is strong and growing. And then you have your choice of 5 selections. You click on your selection, you go to the next one. We actively and regularly get involved with, and it goes on and on from that. You'll go through, there's approximately 15 to 20 statements for each of the external environment sections and the internal environment sections. You can see the start of the internal environment section there in the middle. And then you'll get into section 3, which is on core components. And there's a set of about 15 to 20 questions for each of the 5 categories that fall under core components. And you can see that we start there with, we have a full set of client offerings, so forth and so on. And again, the participants have their choice of rating that on a 1 to 5 scale. From that, it goes into the and oh, by the way, going back up to this, at any point in time, you can save your work and resume it later through the link. So that's a functionality that we've added as a result of the beta. So if you don't have the 15 or 20 minutes to sit down and go through it to completion, you can save your work and come back to it. Ultimately, you will complete the instrument and then hit submit. At that time, it goes into the system. Once it's in the system, we then go through a phase of aggregating the data from each individual hub that is submitted. So we've done this in a variety of ways. We've done it with a submission of 1. So if there is a center director that wants to take this and kind of learn where they stand through their own eyes, that's absolutely acceptable and works well. We also do it with entire teams. So in some cases, it's been a center director along with their staff, or in some cases, we're looking at doing it, and we have done it with a broader leadership team going up through the institution to everybody that sits in a position of some kind of oversight role with the center. Probably one of my best uses of this was a number of years ago in a growth company setting where they actually had a leadership team of 20 people. And we facilitated the session where we took them through the process directly. It's a different tool than this. This tool is specifically designed for innovation hubs and incubators, the entrepreneurship hubs, I should say. The example I'm using actually uses another version of this that we've developed that applies to companies, which we're currently working on, not yet in beta form, to do for startup companies to help you get prepared to work with them. But we felt working with the actual entrepreneurship hubs was probably more critical at this point. But anyways, back to the story. A leadership team of 20, if you can believe it, and it turned out that became one of the issues that we had to deal with. But took them through the process. That ended up resulting in a long-term engagement that we had with them, working them through the development of strategy, working them through a lot of different aspects to the business. And we knew that we really had been providing value when, after about a year and a half, the CEO of the company asked us to, again, do another assessment exactly the same way so that they could measure the improvement that had been achieved in the prior 18 months. And it turned out to be just a fabulous exercise. So the industry comparator, when you get your final report, you'll get any number of charts like this that show external factors, institutional factors, core components. You'll also receive five additional charts like that for each of the 5 areas that you can see under core components: finance, quality, people, marketing, and sales. And what I think is most important, quite frankly, the client-facing metric, which measures a variety of aspects of programming and services that you provide your clientele. So that gives you the industry comparator, shows you where you stand within the industry. And then from that, we go to the roadmap to the future. So if you recall that kind of curved line I showed you, we go from the analyzer to the industry comparator, continuing to build up the learning, and then we come out with the what shows here as recommendations. Again, I kind of like to cast those more as ideas to consider for implementation. And you can see that they kind of run just a variety of in a variety of detail, depending on what we were able to extract from the data. It could be something general, like instituting a formal mentoring program, to perhaps maybe something that's a little bit more detailed, like instituting a formal succession plan, or developing monthly metrics. And then, you can see the example I switched there over to the client facing. Let me use this as an example. I'll go back up here for a second. You get the breakdown on core components into the 5 key core components, and then each of those are in turn broken down. So if you look at client facing under core components, in fact, I'll point to that. So client facing under core components, and then we break it down further. So here you can see client facing is broken down into services, access to talent, access to capital, facilities, and programming. And then there's a variety of sources that we use for that data. There's not a linear connection between one statement and one metric. In fact, you'll see as you go through the instrument, there's a variety of ways that we're able to draw on the data to tell us what's happening within any given hub. which really makes for I think a stronger set of recommendations to consider. So that's the roadmap to the future. So let's take a quick walkthrough, if we may. And I am going to go to, here we go. No, that's not it. There it is. Wendy, can you just give me the thumbs up if you see the eGauge beta?
I sure do.
Okay, excellent. So this is the landing page. You'll click on the link, and you'll see the welcome, North Riverside Partners, along with Wendy Kennedy, which are virtually one and the same. We go into the beta eGauge. We talk a little bit. So, by the way, this has been designed so that when you give the link to your staff, when you give the link to your leadership team, we don't want you to have to try to describe what they're going through, other than that it's an assessment tool that will provide a roadmap. So we talk about what we're doing. We talk about how to respond. You can see there that the entire survey takes on average between 15 and I think it comes in at like 18 minutes and 20 seconds to complete. We talk about the framework. You've seen a little bit of that. And then we just ask people to provide a few details, and they have to complete this section and other sections to move forward. And you can see that you can save and resume later. Okay, once that section's complete, you just go to next. And that takes us directly to the questions we have on the external environment. I think it'll be formatted differently than what it's coming across on the Zoom, but even if not, this works. So you can see it's just simple. Our regional economy is strong and growing. It's not dismal. It's not weak. Right now, given what we're saying, we'll say it's moderate. We actively and regularly get involved with local and state or national political and issues that are impacting us. Never, occasionally. Others here do. So I work, part of my time I work in a large organization. Others are doing the actual lobbying. So I'll click 3 on that. We have many existing examples in our community of successful business or startup cooperation. There's actually quite a bit going on. So we'll click that. So you get a sense of how quickly you can go through this. And oh boy, the phone's ringing. I need to run. So I can hit save and resume later. And it'll send me a link, which I'm actually not going to do right now, just so I don't keep filling up my inbox. But you can see that you can do the save and resume later. Then off you go. You come back to it when you have a chance to complete that. Okay, let's see. Okay, so that's the quick walkthrough. I encourage you to by all means take advantage of getting the link and going through that. So in conclusion, we're here today to look forward, and we're preparing our to be our best tomorrow. We've all hit, and I know we haven't organizationally, but in a sense, the world's hit a little bit of a pause here, and I'm just encouraging people to take advantage of that pause to make sure that we're building our next steps to go forward into a bright future. And by the way, one of the ways I've characterized that to companies is as I counsel so many people on the whole notion of chasing capital, of positioning yourself for the future without regard to what the technology is or what niche they're in. This is going to be over. And I tell them, you're going to have some early meetings with investors. You're going to have some early meetings with new customers. You're going to have some early meetings with new vendors, with new employees. You're going to have these meetings, and you want to be positioned to tell them this is what we did over the last 6 weeks, the last 8 weeks, the last 12 weeks, as we recognized that the world itself was going through a pivot. And this is what we've done to prepare for that. This is how we've revised our business model. This is how we have enhanced our business plan. And I tell companies, don't find yourself in a place where you're meeting with, let's just say, hypothetically, it's a new investor, and they ask you what you've done over the last 2 or 3 months of this crisis, and you tell them, well, I didn't do anything. Or, well, our business plan's as good today as it was, 3 months ago. That's not true. There is no way that a business plan 3 months ago is one that's gonna flourish moving forward. So I just encourage people, position yourself now to be the best you can tomorrow. So join our eGauge beta extension, get started today. All of the attendees, and in fact, all of the registrants will receive a link to use. Look for an email from me. Hopefully, if I'm agile enough, hopefully you'll see that email within the next hour. And barring any unforeseen technical difficulties, or I should say user difficulties, and we'll look to get that out to everybody, and then you'll be hearing back from me and Wendy following that. By the way, it is a beta, so there is an ask, and that ask is that once you hit submit, after you've completed the assessment, so this will be before you receive the report and all that. We do want your feedback. We value your feedback, and actually there's any number of you on this call that have been beta users, and hopefully you've seen reflected in what I just showed you, because this is on a whole new platform than it was a month ago. You've seen that we've taken your ideas, we've implemented them where we can, where they made a great deal of sense to us. But I do want to thank a lot of you that are on this call. I'm not going to mention names out of fear that I'll omit somebody, but you know who you are, and some of you have helped immensely in helping us get this put together. So the feedback form is really simple. After you do a 99 statement assessment, I know you attention spans are probably at the point where the shorter we can make it, the better. So it is. It's only 6 short questions. It's actually 5 questions with space to provide us more detailed feedback. So once you hit submit, you'll get a confirmation email that'll contain the link to the feedback form, and I really encourage you to help us out by doing that. So we're here to help. Wendy, I think at this point, I'm going to leave this slide up, which has our contact information, and I'm going to turn it back over to you. But first, if there's any questions, I'm happy to start trying to answer them.
Okay, fantastic. Great presentation. So there have been questions. I feel like I'm an air traffic controller. I've got all these different screens up on my screen, so or boxes up on my screen. So there is a question from Carl that I think is a great one to kick off, and then I'll follow that with a question from John Fritz. So Carl asks, do you think you should ask participants to think about some of the questions post-COVID or pre-COVID so as to not skew the results? So I think that's a great place to start this conversation.
Yeah, it's absolutely a fabulous question. And while I think that a pre and post COVID device, a pre and post COVID assessment tool would be awesome. What we've done instead is we've kind of made sure that the questions are pertinent to the current reality, and will hold true going forward as well. So you won't see COVID-19 mentioned by name, but please know that it was very much in mind as we went through a set of revisions on all of the statements to make sure that it was current. And one of the reasons for that is that if we wanted to do the pre and the post, which again makes a great deal of sense, we have to kind of put that on its own platform for the machine learning to absolutely work appropriately. It's not that we don't have the flexibility to do that, we do, but we would need to kind of invent that. So I can tell you this, Carl, I'm going to take that to heart. because I think the way that we might want to do it is an additional plug-in module that might add a smaller set of statements that we could plug in. The 99 might become, 119, but that would be okay because it would certainly give us a compass to the current future.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Hopefully that
So, Carl has a follow-on question, but I'm going to just flip over here for a minute to John Fritz, who asks, how do you handle wide disparity of answers to the same question among a team? Sometimes discussion followed by re-rating the answer is good because relevant information comes out of the discussion.
That is absolutely true. Slides that you didn't see today depict how we deliver eGauge, and there's multiple ways to deliver it. Personally, my favorite way to deliver it is in person in a lengthy session where we take an entire leadership team or staff through the assessment as a group, and we facilitate them arriving at consensus. And when you can facilitate a group arriving at consensus on an answer, the discussions are rich, they're deep, and it also gives us a chance as facilitators or moderators to explain a little bit more about what the statement is designed to get to. We made a choice, given everybody's current situation of being unable to travel. We made a choice with this beta extension to do it solely online. That said, I think, John, the point you raise is so absolutely critical. I would be happy to offer to anybody to actually facilitate doing this in a group setting virtually, if that made sense. But that's the kind of thing that would make the most sense, just following up individually on. So I'm happy to, John, to have the discussion with you and Sean and John and Lindsay and down there in San Antonio.
Perfect. Yeah, I agree. It's the discussion post completion, right? That really is where the heart of the value comes in. So facilitating that in whatever way will be important. Carl comes with a follow-on question. So he says, do you see some benchmarking applications coming in a later version to do some comparisons across stage of ventures and types of ventures to identify consistent patterns or insights? Nice question. I like this question.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of, and again, I mean, my ultimate hope is to expand this to not just startups, but growth companies, and start to learn and put the learning to work so that we're able to do that. I can tell you, it'll probably take me becoming more than just a 3-day-a-week voluntary early partial retiree, because it's gonna take a yeoman's effort, and it may be something that we need to hire programmers into, because I think it's potentially so valuable to be able to give people a sense of where they stand relative to a norm. The other thing I'll add, and thanks for that question, Carl, this goes a little bit beyond that. The other thing that we are going to be developing, and once we get through the beta and we start to build up the database, it'll be a lot easier. And that is, I'm going to add a third leg to the industry comparator. Currently, it's designed to provide people their self-assessed standing versus an industry norm, but I also want to add best in class, so that people will be able to see where they stand relative to best in class. And then, right now, all the data remains confidential. I intend to keep it confidential out of respect for all of our participants, but we will be able to connect people to best in class practitioners.
Great. Any other questions from our group today? Just one sec, we have a question. Hi, Brittany. So Brittany's question is, would there be a future edition to see where you stand in comparison to your community or region, or will it just be industry overall?
We have the flexibility customize it to almost any circumstance. And if the desire, I mean, it's going to take a little design work, but if anybody using it wanted to use it in a way that would be able to compare them to somebody that's voluntarily participate. Oh, it says it's actually Kyla. So Kyla and Brittany are together. That's always dangerous. If you had others within your community that were willing to participate, we'd be able to extract that information and do that kind of comparison. We actually, during the early beta phase, we actually were able to provide somebody a look at how they compared to their staff, which was fascinating and showed almost entirely complete alignment. It was so great. But yeah, there's a lot. Once we get into the kind of the customized work, it kind of takes it a little bit out of the beta phase, but we're happy to do that.
Okay, let me just make sure. It's 11:45, folks. Any last questions that you want to jump in with on the live session? Please know, of course, I can always volunteer John and say, John's available to answer questions.
Well,
so as the product manager, John's available to answer questions any time of the day or night. He's just down there in the basement working away, right? He's just like a little mouse down there pounding away on his keyboard.
Looking forward to his afternoon walk.
So, okay. So I think that brings us to a wrap then. So thank you, John. Bravo. Well done. I'm really excited to see the participants jump into the tool and start to use it. And in all sincerity, folks, as you do that and you have questions, that's the time to feel free to reach out. You know, we're here, like all of you, we're working from home. So if you need help or you have questions or you even have ideas as you go through the tool, you can put them into the feedback form, or, you know, that's probably the best route. Or if that's not easy for you, share them in an email. We just really would love to get your input as you walk through the tool and use it. So any final thoughts, John?
Nope, none from me. I look forward to hearing from anybody that has any comments outside of this forum. Stay in touch. We're here for you. And boy, I really look forward to starting to dive into some data.
Yeah, that'll be great. Okay, so next week, same time, same place. We've got Carol Lawfer from Business Cluster Development, and Carol's going to talk about clusters as a strategy to move forward in these new times. So I'm looking forward to that as well. So I think Carol's on our webinar today. So Carol, we're really excited to have you kick off that conversation with folks as another go forward strategy. So, okay, folks, I think that's a wrap. Thank you very, very much. Thank you, John. And we will see you all as you work through the tool, and we will see you next week at 11 a.m. Eastern. Okay, take care.
Thank you,
Bye
Wendy.
for now.
Thanks, everybody. See you.